I flew into Miami without a word to anyone, picturing the joy on my daughter's face when I surprised her. Instead, I walked straight into a nightmare. She was lying alone in intensive care while her husband lived it up on a luxury yacht, burning through my money on champagne and entertainment. The rage that boiled in me left him penniless, and within the hour he'd lost his mind. But that was only the beginning. Before I go further, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling me what time it is where you're watching from. As the plane dipped lower toward MIA, I pulled out my phone, hands trembling just a little as I typed, landing in 15 minutes. This will be the best surprise of her life. Hitting send felt like making a promise I was finally ready to keep. 3 years, it had been far too long. I pulled out the old photograph I kept tucked in my wallet. The edges were soft now from handling it every day. Sophia laughing in her kitchen. Lily grinning with a gap where her baby tooth had been. Little Noah, proud as can be, holding up his crayon masterpiece. And Clara, God, Clara, flower petals dusting her dark hair. Ever since she passed, that picture had been my anchor. But today it felt different. Today, I was finally doing something about the ache in my chest. Folks, we're beginning our final approach into Miami International Airport. The pilot's voice crackled overhead as my weathered hands tightened on the armrests. Anticipation surged through me. The last time I'd surprised anyone was for Clara's 50th birthday. That felt like another life. 5 years of grief had carved me hollow, turned me into a stranger even to my own daughter. But her voice from our last call 3 months ago kept echoing, "I'm just tired, Dad. Really tired." Something in the way she said it gnawed at me every night since. At the baggage carousel, I stood waiting as the conveyor hummed steadily. Around me, other families reunited, an old couple hugging their son, a young mom sweeping her toddler into her arms. Soon, that would be me and Sophia. She didn't even know I was coming. Coral Springs, please. I slid into the back of an Uber, showing the driver her address on my phone. Going to surprise my daughter. Surprises are the best, he said in accented English as he merged into the heavy MIA traffic. My family back in Guatemala loves when I show up without warning. The freeway stretched endlessly ahead, palm trees bending in the April breeze. Miami looked exactly as I remembered it, sprawling, sun-baked, nothing like the small Montana town where I'd raised Sophia. She always wanted more. Bigger, brighter. Clara used to laugh and say our girl got her adventurous streak from me, back when I still believed in taking chances. Twice during the ride I pulled up her contact, thumb hovering over the call button, then backing out. No, better to see her face when I walked through the door. That look would be worth the stiff back and the 4-hour flight. This the place? The driver asked as we rolled up to a neat little house with white shutters and a tidy front garden. Perfect, I said, handing him cash before grabbing my overnight bag. I stood on the sidewalk, sunlight warm on my shoulders, rehearsing how I'd greet her. Maybe I'd crack a joke about her old man finally figuring out how to book a flight online. Or maybe I'd just open my arms and wait for her to run into them like she did when she was 8. I reached into my bag for the small gift I'd brought, a hand-carved wooden jewelry box I'd made in the garage, meant to hold her grandmother's ring until Lily was old enough to wear it. Clara would have loved knowing it was being passed down. The doorbell button waited under my finger. For a moment, I just stood there, savoring the anticipation. 3 years of phone calls and text messages were about to turn into real hugs, home-cooked meals, and late-night conversations. I pressed it once. The chime echoed inside. Silence. I pressed again, longer this time. Same echo. Same silence. Sophia, it's Dad, I called, rapping on the frame. Maybe they were upstairs, or out back with the kids. Families can be loud. Maybe they just hadn't heard me. But the silence stretched thin. I stepped back and looked properly at the house. The rose bush by the front window was brown at the edges, petals scattered across the walk like faded confetti. Sophia used to send me photos of her roses every spring. When had she stopped? I circled to the side gate and peered through the slats. The patio furniture was dust-coated, the little vegetable patch withered to brittle stalks. A child's tricycle lay tipped on its side by the back door, one wheel spinning lazily in the wind. Strange, I muttered, heading back around. The mailbox sagged under the weight of envelopes and small packages, some spilling onto the ground. I bent to pick a few up. Electric bills 3 weeks old. Junk mail. A package addressed to Brian, bleached by days in the sun. The latest postmark I saw was already 10 days past. That's when my heart began to pound. That old engineer's instinct of mine kicked in. When something doesn't work, there's always a reason. You just need more data. I cupped my hands to the living room window, pressing my face against the glass. The curtains were drawn, the rooms inside dark and lifeless. No television glow, no laughter, no sounds of kids running wild. The place looked abandoned. Still, I could make out familiar shapes, Sophia's art easel standing in the corner, Noah's toy cars scattered like landmines across the coffee table. "Excuse me, are you looking for the Grants?" I spun around. An elderly woman in a wide sun hat was crossing the lawn from next door, garden shears dangling from her gloved hand. "Yes," I said quickly. "I'm Harley Mercer. Sophia's father. Have you seen them recently?" She wiped her forehead with the back of her wrist, squinting. "Now that you mention it, no. Been awfully quiet over there. Usually I hear the children playing mornings, but..." Her voice trailed off as she studied my face. "Is everything all right?" "I'm sure it is," I said, though even to me the word sounded flimsy. "They probably went on vacation. Maybe visiting family." Her eyes said she didn't quite believe it either. "Well, I hope they're fine. Such a sweet family." She nodded politely and turned back to her garden. I sat heavily on Sophia's front step, still clutching the wooden jewelry box I'd brought. The pieces weren't adding up. If they'd gone on vacation, Sophia would have told me. And Brian, he practically lived on social media. There would have been photos of beaches, cocktails, selfies. Something. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through Sophia's Facebook page. The last post was 6 weeks back, a picture of Lily's school art project. Before that, nothing for nearly 2 months. My daughter, who used to document every family dinner, every weekend outing, had gone completely silent. The shadows grew long as I sat staring at that house. A jogger ran by with earbuds in, lost in her own world. Somewhere down the street, a lawnmower buzzed to life, the sound oddly reassuring, so at odds with the dread tightening my chest. I checked under the welcome mat. Nothing. Felt around the rim of the flower pot. No spare key. The doorknob rattled uselessly in my hand. Locked. Of course. "Okay, Harley," I muttered out loud, trying to steady myself. "Don't panic. There's a reasonable explanation." But the truth was harder to ignore, the overgrown garden, the mailbox stuffed full, the silence pressing down. My surprise visit had uncovered something worse than just an empty house. Time to call. My thumb hovered over Sophia's name, then I pressed it. The dial tone thrummed in my ear, my pulse climbing. 1 ring. 2. 3. Straight to voicemail. "Hi, you've reached Sophia. Leave a message and I'll get back to you as soon as I can." Her cheerful recorded voice made my chest seize. I hung up and called again. Same result. By the 3rd try, I was determined to leave a message. And then, hello. The voice wasn't Sophia's. Male, professional, cautious. "Sophia, this is Dad," I rushed out. "I'm in Miami. I wanted to surprise you but nobody's home. Sir, this is Dr. Alvarez, Cedar-Sinai Medical Center. Are you a family member of Sophia Grant? The world tilted sideways. I gripped the phone harder, my other hand clutching the porch railing. What? Yes. I'm her father. Why do you have her phone? Where is she? A pause, heavy as lead. Mr. Mercer, I'm very sorry. Your daughter is in our intensive care unit. She's been receiving treatment for advanced cancer. Her condition is critical. The words hit me like blows. Cancer. Critical. My vision blurred at the edges. No, that's impossible. I talked to her 3 months ago. She was fine. Just tired from chasing the kids. I understand this is a shock, Dr. Alvarez said gently. Stage 4 cancer can move fast. And many patients don't share the diagnosis right away, even with close family. She's been under our care for several weeks. Several weeks. The neglected garden, the overflowing mailbox, the empty house, all of it clicked into place with awful clarity. Where's Brian? I demanded. Where are the children? I'm afraid I can't comment on other family matters, Mr. Mercer. Confidentiality rules. But I strongly urge you to come to the hospital right away. Your daughter has been asking for you. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the phone. What's the address? I'm coming now. Baptist Health Miami Cancer Institute, 8900 North Kendall Drive. Ask for the intensive care unit. Dr. Alvarez. The line went dead. I sat there on the porch steps, staring at the phone in my trembling hands. The sun burned too hot on my neck, too bright, too normal for a world where my daughter was lying in critical condition, and I hadn't known. 3 months ago, she'd told me she was tired. Just tired. And I'd been so buried in my own grief and loneliness that I'd brushed it off, missing every warning sign. The wooden jewelry box slipped from my lap, clattering against the porch step. Clara's ring had been meant for Lily one day, but what if there wasn't going to be a someday? What if I was already too late? I lurched to my feet, head swimming, and staggered toward the street on autopilot. A taxi, I needed a taxi. The hospital's address was branded into my mind, 8900 North Kendall Drive, Intensive Care Unit. When I finally flagged down a yellow cab, one thought kept circling in my head, sharp as broken glass. How had I become the kind of father who learns his daughter is dying from a stranger on the phone? The cab door slammed shut like a coffin lid on my old life. I shoved the crumpled scrap of paper with the hospital address into the driver's hand, still trembling. Baptist Health Miami Cancer Institute. Please. As fast as you can. He nodded, glancing at me in the rearview. Traffic's heavy this time of day, sir, but I'll do my best. His eyes lingered on me, reading my panic. I tried to form the words, emergency, my daughter, she's dying, but they stuck in my throat. The leather seat felt alien beneath me. Too smooth, too ordinary for a man whose world had just shattered. Outside, Miami traffic pulsed and weaved as usual, shoppers, commuters, people going about their day. My nightmare threaded right through their normal. Cancer. Stage 4. Critical. The words played on repeat. I pulled out that same worn photograph, tracing Sophia's laughing face with my thumb. How had I missed it? That last phone call rang again in my ears, just tired, Dad. Really tired. She'd said it like she was carrying an invisible boulder. I'd chalked it up to motherhood, long workdays, the exhaustion of raising 2 kids. What kind of father does that? The cab jerked forward in stop-and-go traffic, and memories crashed over me. Sophia's first wobbly steps across our kitchen floor, arms outstretched, trusting me completely. Teaching her to ride a bike in the park, running alongside until I realized she'd been pedaling free all on her own. The smile on her face at high school graduation, diploma in hand. And just 2 years ago, walking her down the aisle, placing her hand in Brian's. "I'll take care of your daughter, sir," he'd promised, his handshake firm. Where was he now? Why hadn't he called me when she got sick? For the 4th time I dialed his number. Straight to voicemail. "Brian, this is Harley. I'm in Miami. Sophia's in the hospital, you need to call me immediately." My voice cracked with anger. The message was far too polite for the rage boiling inside. My daughter was fighting for her life, and her husband was absent. "Faster, please," I urged the driver. "She's only 38. She's got 2 little kids." "So young," he murmured, accelerating through a yellow light. "I have a daughter, too. Same age. This breaks the heart." Outside the window, palm trees swayed lazily in the evening air, indifferent to human misery. Clara used to say Miami looked like paradise but felt lonely. She'd been right, like she usually was. If she were still alive, Clara would have known Sophia was sick. Mothers have that invisible thread, that intuition. She'd have pressed for details, sensed the truth in her daughter's voice, maybe even flown out here herself. But Clara was gone, and I had spent 4 years drowning in my own grief instead of being the father Sophia needed. I unfolded and refolded the scrap of paper with the hospital address, creasing it into a tight square. It was the only solid thing in a day that felt like smoke. That morning, I'd been a retired engineer planning a surprise visit. By evening, I was hurtling through Miami traffic, racing toward my dying daughter. The taxi finally pulled to the curb as the sky turned purple with twilight. Glass and steel rose in front of me, clean and imposing. Through the wide windows, I could see doctors, nurses, and families moving briskly under fluorescent light, each carrying their own burdens. "Here we are, sir," the driver said gently. "Good luck with your daughter." I handed him cash with unsteady hands, grabbed my overnight bag, and stepped onto the sidewalk. The automatic doors whooshed open, revealing a sleek lobby dotted with bright artwork. The cheerful colors felt obscene, mocking, almost, against the reality that my daughter was fighting for her life inside. I walked up to the information desk, where a kind-faced woman looked up at me as if she already knew why I was there. "Oncology Intensive Care Unit," I managed to say. "My daughter, Sophia Grant." "ID, please," she said gently, sliding a clipboard toward me. "And I'll need you to sign in." My hands shook as I scribbled my name. She handed me a visitor badge and gave directions. "Take the elevator to the 5th floor." The ride felt endless. Each glowing number above the doors wasn't just another floor, it was a countdown to devastation. When the doors finally opened, the smell hit me. That hospital cocktail of antiseptic and something heavier, human suffering, grief baked into the walls. At the nurse's station, a compact man with wire-rimmed glasses waited. His eyes were kind, but serious. He stepped forward, hand extended. "Mr. Mercer, I'm Dr. Alvarez. I'm glad you made it safely." My voice came out hoarse. "How is she?" "Stable for now," he said carefully. "The chemotherapy hasn't worked as well as we hoped, but she's responding to the new protocol." He motioned down the hallway. "She's been asking for family. She'll be relieved you're here." We walked together past rooms full of quiet heartbreak, the steady beep of monitors, whispers between loved ones. In one room, an elderly man held his wife's hand like it was keeping her tethered to this world. In another, a young mother read to a bald child propped up on pillows. "Room 512, Dr. Alvarez said softly. "I should warn you, the illness has taken its toll on her physically. But emotionally, mentally, she's still very much herself." Nothing could have prepared me. Sophia was propped against a mound of pillows, hooked up to machines that marked her heartbeat in steady green blips. For lines trailed from her arms to bags hanging on silver poles. She looked so small, so fragile, nothing like the radiant young woman who had danced at her wedding. But when her eyes found mine, her face broke into the most beautiful smile. "Daddy." Just a whisper, but it hit me like a freight train. I crossed the room in 3 strides and folded her into my arms, careful not to hurt her. She felt so light, all sharp edges where there had once been softness. "Oh, sweetheart," tears I'd been holding back since that awful phone call finally spilled. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." "I didn't want to worry you," she whispered into my shoulder. "You were still grieving Mom, and I thought I could handle it alone." I pulled back just enough to look at her, tucking the thin hospital blanket around her the way I used to when she was little and afraid of monsters under her bed. "Why didn't you tell me? We could have fought this together." Her eyes filled. "The doctor said 6 months, maybe 8 with treatment. I kept hoping I'd get better. I wanted to call you when I had good news, when I was in remission. Not like this." "8 months," I echoed softly, my chest tightening. "Maybe less now." I sank into the chair beside her, cradling her cold hand between both of mine. "Where's Brian?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She heard the edge anyway. "He said he had important business meetings this week." She looked away toward the window. "Said he'd be back before the weekend." "When did you last see him?" 3 days ago, she admitted, voice small. "He's been distant since the diagnosis. I think it scares him." "Scares him?" "My daughter was dying, and her husband was scared." "Has he been taking care of you? Helping with the kids?" "My neighbor Lily watches them during the day," she said quickly. "Brian handles the practical stuff." But the way she said it, like she was convincing herself more than me, told me all I needed to know. I stayed with her for the next hour, just holding her hand as she drifted in and out of shallow sleep. Each time she stirred, her eyes sought mine immediately, like she was checking to be sure I was real. As the evening deepened outside her window and the city lights flickered to life like scattered stars, she finally slipped into a deeper rest. Her breathing evened out, soft and steady. I gently released her hand and walked to the window, staring down at Miami glowing in the dark. Then I pulled out my phone. Time to try Brian again. The first call went straight to voicemail after a single ring. He was screening. I typed a text, "Your wife is in ICU. Call immediately." 5 minutes. Nothing. I tried again. Same result. That's when I noticed Sophia's phone charging on the bedside table. Maybe he'd answer if the call came from her. I glanced at her sleeping form, then picked it up carefully. Brian's name was right there in her recent calls. The last time he'd reached out? 2 days ago. 2 days since he'd even bothered to check on his dying wife. I pressed the button. The third attempt. Straight to voicemail. Again. I was about to set the phone down when the screen lit up. A notification. Instagram. The app was still open, Sophia's account. At the very top of her feed, a red circle glowed around Brian's story. Without thinking, I tapped it. The first photo made my blood run cold. A luxury yacht, polished deck gleaming in the Florida sun. Champagne glasses sparkling like jewels. A manicured hand lifting a flute in a toast. The timestamp said 2 hours ago. I swiped. Brian's face filled the screen, grinning, relaxed, his arms draped around 2 men I didn't recognize. They all looked like they'd been pulled straight from a glossy magazine spread, expensive sunglasses reflecting the Pacific behind them. The caption read, "Living my best life with the boys. Posted 90 minutes ago." I felt my vision blur with rage. While I was learning my daughter had stage 4 cancer, her husband was out here living his best life. Still, I kept swiping. Brian sprawled across white cushions, Brian diving into blue water, Brian holding up another glass of champagne as the sunset blazed orange. The last story was a video. He looked straight into the camera, smile cocky and careless. Nothing like a few days away from reality to clear your head. You know, sometimes you just gotta live a little away from reality. Away from reality. His wife lay connected to machines, fighting for every breath, and he was talking about escaping reality. I checked the location tag. Miami Beach Marina. Less than an hour from this hospital. My hands shook as I typed a message. I see you're having fun. Your wife is dying. Call me. Then another, I have screenshots. We need to talk. Nothing. No reply. I paced the room, forcing myself to keep quiet so I wouldn't wake Sophia. My mind spun with questions. That yacht alone had to cost thousands a day. Brian was a consultant, sure, but not yacht rental for fun successful. So where was the money coming from? I looked back at Sophia's thin, peaceful face and whispered words I should have said months ago. I won't let him hurt you anymore, sweetheart. Daddy's here now. I'll fix this. The monitor beside her bed beeped steadily, marking each heartbeat. Each one a reminder that Brian was wasting her precious time on champagne and sunsets with strangers. How long had this been going on? How many weeks, how many months, had she been suffering alone while he played at being single? I sat back down with her phone, screenshotting everything methodically. The engineer in me took over, document the evidence, build the case, find the leverage points. Brian might think he could walk away from my daughter in her darkest hour, but he'd made one fatal mistake: he'd forgotten she had a father who would burn the world down to protect her. My phone buzzed. An incoming call. Brian's name lit the screen. I glanced once more at Sophia, her face finally calm, her breathing even, then slipped into the hallway. Time to have a conversation. I leaned back into her room for a moment, brushing a kiss across her forehead. I'll be right back, sweetheart. Just stepping out for some coffee. The elevator carried me down to the main floor, past bright directional signs that seemed out of place in my tunnel vision. The cafeteria was nearly empty, just a few nurses and doctors grabbing late meals between shifts. I bought a coffee I didn't even want and sat alone at a corner table. I pulled out my phone again and stared at that yacht photo until it burned. Brian's smug grin. The champagne. The pristine deck. How does a business consultant afford a $20,000 yacht rental? The question triggered a memory that turned my stomach. A year ago, Brian had come to me, quiet, serious, talking about family emergencies. Lily's dental work. Repairs on the house. He'd said he didn't want Sophia worrying about money, not while she was already stressed. Could you give me access to your backup account, just temporarily, until things stabilize? I'd thought, what a thoughtful husband. Protecting her from stress. Caring. Now my hands shook as I opened my banking app and logged into that account. The transaction history loaded slowly, each line another knife. Miami Beach Marina Yacht Charters, $20,000. Posted yesterday. Soho Beach House, $1,050. 3 days ago. Pines Lincoln Service, $2,800. Last week. Miami Design District Shopping, $5,400. 10 days ago. Every line was proof. Evidence in a trial where Brian had already been found guilty. The list went on, line after line, a months-long pattern of indulgence, luxury spending while my daughter lay wasting away in a hospital bed. Every glass of champagne he raised, every yacht party he smiled through, every overpriced dinner he devoured, it was all funded with my money. The father's money. The father of the woman he'd abandoned. I screenshotted everything, my engineer's brain automatically shifting into case-building mode. The dates told the story more clearly than words ever could. While Sophia endured her first rounds of chemo, Brian was shopping in Miami Design District. While her hair fell in clumps on her pillow, he was fine dining at 5-star restaurants. The parasitic scumbag. I stopped myself. Rage was fuel, but calculation was the engine. If I wanted to protect my daughter, I needed to stay cold. I pulled a small notebook from my jacket and started jotting down the essentials: account numbers, transaction IDs, spending timelines. A systematic plan to cut him off. Brian had made one fatal mistake: he'd bankrolled his betrayal with my money. Now it was time to show him what happens when you cross a Montana engineer who spent 40 years solving problems with precision. The cafeteria around me hummed with its quiet soundtrack: vending machines, overhead pages, the shuffle of tired medical staff. But I wasn't really there anymore. My mind was running blueprints, building contingencies, mapping pressure points. Brian thought he could ride out his wife's terminal illness on my dime. He was about to learn that actions have consequences, and sometimes those consequences arrive with mathematical certainty. I drained the last of my cold coffee, stood, and slid the notebook into my pocket. Step 1. Cut off his access before he burned another cent. Step 2 would be personal. I found a quiet alcove near the hospital chapel and sat down with my phone and notebook spread out before me. The irony didn't escape me: plotting financial warfare only steps from a sanctuary I had no plans of entering. The bank's emergency line picked up on the third ring. Capital One Emergency Services, this is Sarah. How can I help you tonight? This is Harley Mercer, account holder, I said, steady as stone. I need to revoke all authorized access to my accounts immediately. I'll need to verify your identity, Mr. Mercer. Social security number and mother's maiden name, please. I rattled it off without hesitation. 40 years with the same bank, they knew me, but protocol was protocol. Thank you. I see Brian Grant has had authorized access to your backup savings since July 2022. Do you want to revoke his privileges completely? Immediate and permanent removal, I said. And transfer all remaining funds to my secured primary account. I should inform you this action is irreversible and may affect any linked services or automated payments. Are you sure you wish to proceed? Cancel everything. Every charge, every service, every connection tied to him. Each word came out clipped, final. One moment while I processed the changes. Hold music trickled through the receiver while a security guard strolled by, nodding at me like it was any other night. Routine life went on while I dismantled Brian's financial world piece by piece. Mr. Mercer, the transfer is complete, $145,000 moved to your primary account. I also see 3 credit cards with authorized user status in his name. Would you like those cancelled? $145,000. He'd been draining me for nearly 2 years while my daughter suffered in silence. Cancel them. Remove him from everything. Every account, every notification. Understood. Processing now. His cards are deactivated, any new charges will be declined. You'll also receive confirmation emails shortly. Would you like fraud alerts set up in case he tries to access again? Yes. Already in place, sir. I hung up and immediately checked my banking app. Confirmed, access revoked, cards terminated, automatic payments gone. Brian's lifeline had been cut with surgical precision. My phone buzzed with the first confirmation email. Then another. Each one felt like a small verdict delivered, justice by digital receipt. Let's see how long the yacht party lasts when the cards start bouncing. I closed the notebook with a sharp snap and slid it back into my pocket. The engineering part of this problem was solved. Identify the failure. Isolate the bad part. Remove it permanently. That's how you fix a system, and Brian was no different. His access to my resources now existed only in his imagination. Standing up from that chair, I felt lighter than I had in hours. Not because Sophia's burden was gone, it wasn't, and it wouldn't be until she either recovered or slipped away. But the torture of knowing I'd been financing her abandonment? That ended tonight. Let Brian enjoy his yacht for a few more hours. Tomorrow, when the cards stopped working and the phones went unanswered, he'd learn what happens when a parasite loses its host. I walked back toward the elevator, past the chapel door left slightly ajar, past the nurses changing shifts, past the hum of a hospital still pulsing with its own routines. A quiet justice had just been served, even if nobody else noticed. Sophia was awake when I returned, her eyes fixed on the ceiling, face caught in that distant expression I'd already seen too many times today. The glow from the monitors filled the room in soft green light, a world separate from the hospital chaos beyond her door. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, setting down the coffee I'd never touched and pulling my chair closer. "How are you feeling?" "Better now that you're here." She turned her head toward me, and I could tell something had shifted. Her eyes were too heavy with things unsaid. "Dad," she whispered, "I need to tell you something about Brian." I took her hand. Cold fingers in my warm grip. "Take your time, honey. I'm listening. He changed after Noah was born." Her voice was halting, each word weighed like she wasn't sure it was safe. "He started saying I wasn't contributing enough. The freelance work was harder with the baby crying all night. Brian said I was a burden." My free hand curled into a fist under the blanket, but my voice stayed gentle. "A burden? You were raising 2 kids, Sophia." He said the medical bills were ruining his future plans. That he'd married a partner, not a patient. She looked away, shame burning on her cheeks. When the cancer diagnosis came, he just shut down. Stayed out later. Always another meeting. What kind of man abandons his sick wife? The anger cracked through my voice before I could stop it. I thought if I got better fast, if I didn't complain, maybe he'd come back. Be the father Lily and Noah deserve. Her tears slid freely now. "But he's not coming back, is he, Dad?" I smoothed her hair, the same way I had when she was 7 and afraid of thunderstorms. "Sweetheart, you are perfect exactly as you are. Any man who can't see that isn't worth your love." "I feel so stupid," she whispered. "I defended him to you all these years, making excuses when he never called you back, when he skipped family holidays. You were right about him, weren't you?" I'd never spoken badly of Brian to her, but fathers see what daughters sometimes choose not to. "I was wrong about one thing," I admitted softly. "I thought at least he loved you. I never imagined he'd leave you to face this alone." Her voice broke. "The worst part is Lily. She keeps asking when Daddy's coming home. How do I tell a 6-year-old that her father chose comfort over her mother's life?" A nurse slipped in, checked vitals, and left again. When the door clicked shut, I leaned closer. "You don't have to carry that. Don't worry about money. Don't worry about Brian. Focus on healing. I'll handle the rest." "Dad, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking," I interrupted gently. "I'm telling you. Your job is getting better. Everything else is mine." I kissed her forehead. "You'll never deal with his selfishness again." Her strength was gone now, drained by the release of tears. Her eyelids grew heavy. "Promise me something," she whispered. "Anything. Don't let anger at Brian consume you. I need my dad, not another angry man in my life." I tucked the blanket up around her shoulders as she drifted toward sleep. "I promise, sweetheart. Rest now." But as I watched her breathing steady, I knew it was a promise I might not keep. Some betrayals demand more than forgiveness. They demand consequences. My phone buzzed in my hand. An unknown number. Miami Beach Marina's area code. I glanced at Sophia, peaceful at last, and stepped quietly toward the window. "Hello." My voice came out like ice. Harley, what the hell did you do? Brian's voice cracked with panic. My cards were declined. In front of everyone. Fix this immediately. Where are you, Brian? I asked flatly. I ignored his demand. That's none of your business. Listen, old man, restore my access right now or... I cut him off, each word landing like a hammer. My daughter is dying in a hospital bed. And you're partying on a yacht with my money. Silence. Then stammering. How did you? This is business networking. I could hear it all through the line, music thumping, voices laughing, waves smacking against the hull. The soundtrack of a man whose wife was fighting for her life while he sipped champagne on someone else's dime. $15,000 for that yacht, Brian, I said, keeping my voice low so I wouldn't wake Sophia. My $20,000. While your wife was in intensive care. You can't just cut me off. I have rights. I'm her husband. You were her husband, I said, past tense sharp as a knife. I glanced back and saw Sophia's eyes open, wide and wet, watching me. She was finally hearing the truth. You don't understand the pressure I've been under. The pressure? My voice hardened. What pressure, Brian? The stress of having unlimited access to my bank account while abandoning your wife and kids? His tone shifted, colder now, calculating. Restore my access, or I'll file for divorce and take the kids. I'll make sure Sophia loses everything in court. That was it. The line he should never have crossed. He just threatened my grandchildren. Brian, I said quietly, and the sound of his own name must have chilled him, because he actually stopped talking. You just made the biggest mistake of your pathetic life. Behind me, Sophia gasped, fully awake now, her tears streaming. She was finally seeing the man she'd married, selfish, cruel, and unrepentant. I know where you are, I continued. I know what you've been doing. I know how much of my money you've wasted while my daughter fought for her life. And now, I know what kind of man threatens to take children away from their dying mother. You can't do this to me. I've got a reputation to maintain. People are watching. Yes, Brian, I said, my voice flat. And they're watching your cards get declined. They're watching your little empire crumble because you're nothing but a parasite. Harley, wait. Let's discuss this reasonably. I've made some mistakes, but we can work this out. I'll come to the hospital right now, we can. I looked at Sophia. She was crying, but her tears weren't of despair, they were tears of release. She'd carried this burden for too long, and now she was seeing her father stand up for her in the way she needed all along. No, Brian, I said softly. We can't work this out. The silence stretched. I could hear him breathing hard, panic creeping in. Behind him, the party sounds collapsed, arguments breaking out, the yacht company demanding payment, his glamorous night unraveling in real time. Harley? You there? Please, I can explain everything. I walked back to Sophia's bed, took her hand, and squeezed it tight. She gripped back with surprising strength. Brian, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper sharp enough to cut glass, you chose a yacht over your dying wife. You chose parties over your kids. You chose my money over your family. And now, you'll live with the consequences. I can change, he pleaded. I'll come back, I'll take care of everyone. If you ever come near my daughter or grandchildren again, I said, calm as stone, I will destroy you. Financially, legally, socially, I'll make sure the world knows exactly who you are. You can't, you don't have the right. You abandoned your sick wife. You stole from her father. You threatened to take children from their dying mother. Tell me, Brian, what court in America will side with you? On the other end, his voice finally broke. I've got nowhere to go. My friends won't even look at me after the cards bounced. The yacht company's threatening to call the police. Please, I made mistakes. But everyone deserves a second chance. You had your second chance every single day for the last 6 months, I said. Every day you chose not to be here. Every day you skipped her treatments. Every day you picked champagne over family. Sophia's sobs grew, but I saw the truth in her tears. They weren't for Brian, they were for freedom. 20 years of making excuses for him, and now she finally understood. Please, Harley, he begged. Just enough money to get home, and... No. The word hit like a gavel. You're done, Brian. Done with my money. Done with my family. Done hurting people I love. But I don't have anywhere to. I ended the call and blocked his number, as final as slamming a door. Then I kissed the back of Sophia's trembling hand. Thank you, Daddy, she whispered. You never have to thank me for protecting you, I said softly. That's what fathers do. She held on tighter. I was so afraid to leave him. Afraid of being alone with the kids. Afraid of admitting I'd made such a mistake. You're not alone, sweetheart. You'll never be alone again. I brushed her hair back like I had when she was little. And it wasn't your mistake. It was his. Every selfish choice was his. For the first time since I'd stepped foot in Miami, she smiled. A real smile. A hopeful one. Get some rest, I told her gently. Tomorrow, we start planning your future. A future where no one could ever hurt her again. Sophia closed her eyes, her breathing deeper and steadier than I'd heard it all day. The machines beside her ticked on, each soft beat marking another heartbeat, another moment, another chance at life. Outside, Miami glimmered in the night, the city indifferent to one family's small victory. But inside room 512, justice had been served, and healing, finally, had begun. 1 year later, 2025. Sunlight poured through the wide kitchen window of our new house in Montana, painting golden squares across the hardwood floor. Lily's crayons and markers lay scattered there in their usual half-organized chaos. From the backyard came the laughter of children, bright and full, carried on the warm breeze. At the counter, Sophia stood chopping vegetables, her movements sure and strong. I paused in the doorway just to watch her. Her hair had grown back thicker, her face fuller, healthier, radiant in a way I hadn't seen in years. The haunted look Brian had carved into her was gone. In its place stood the confident, vibrant woman I'd raised, the daughter who had been buried under fear and manipulation for too long. Dad, you're lurking again, she said without turning around, that teasing tone back in her voice. Just appreciating the view, I answered. Still can't believe you're here, in my kitchen, looking like yourself again. Through the window, Noah was teaching Lily how to throw a football, his small hands shaping hers the way I'd once shaped his mother's. At 8 and 6, those kids had adjusted fast, with the resilience only children seem to have once they know they're truly safe. The divorce had been swift and merciless. Brian's big talk about custody collapsed the second his lawyer saw the phone recordings and the bank statements. Judges don't side with a man who abandons his terminally ill wife while burning through her father's money on yachts and champagne. Grandpa. Lily's voice cut through the screen door. Come help Noah catch better. In a minute, sweetheart, I called back, smiling as I turned to Sophia. How are you feeling today? She set the knife down and faced me. I could see in her eyes what the test results had confirmed 3 months earlier. Honestly? I feel like myself again. Maybe even stronger. The oven timer chimed, and she pulled out a pan of cornbread, Clara's recipe, the one I'd taught her years ago. Some traditions were worth keeping alive. Remember what you used to tell me when I was little, when storms scared me, she asked, setting the pan on the cooling rack. That storms pass, but families last forever. She hugged me then, tight and warm, the way she used to before marriage, before sickness, before fear had created a wall between us. "You were right," she whispered. "I never said I told you so about Brian, and I never would." She'd carried enough pain without me piling on guilt. The restraining order said everything that needed saying. "Dad," Lily scored a touchdown. Noah burst in, grass stains on his knees, grinning ear to ear. Behind him, Lily launched into a victory dance so elaborate it would have made Clara laugh out loud. "Touchdown calls for extra cornbread," Sophia announced, slicing generous steaming squares. Later, as the Montana sky painted itself in orange and pink, the four of us sat on the front porch swing, the same one Clara had loved at the old house, salvaged and rebuilt here where it belonged. Lily dozed against my shoulder while Noah peppered me with questions about the stars pricking through the twilight. "Tell us the story again, Grandpa," Lily mumbled sleepily. "About how you saved Mom." I kissed the top of her head. "Sweetheart, your mom saved herself. I just cleared the obstacles out of her way. Like the bad man who went away." "Like the bad man who went away," I said, glancing at Sophia. She reached for my hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. That squeeze had become our shorthand: gratitude, love, resilience. The bond crisis could have broken, but instead had made unshakable. This, I thought, rocking gently under the darkening sky, this is what winning looks like. Not the single moment of victory, though I'll admit watching Brian beg had been satisfying. No, winning is the quiet years that follow. The ordinary nights when no one's fighting for their life, no one's betraying anyone, and the biggest conflict is whether Noah eats his vegetables. The stars came out one by one. The same constellations Clara and I had watched from this swing decades ago, back when Sophia was Lily's age. Some things change. Marriages end. People disappoint you. Illness tests every idea you ever had about fairness. But some things endure: the love between a father and daughter, the strength of children, the satisfaction of protecting what matters most. Tomorrow, Sophia would work on her design projects while the kids went to school. I'd tend the garden Clara had always wanted and maybe start building Lily that dollhouse. But tonight, under the wide Montana sky, we sat together, 3 generations bound by love, tested by fire, finally safe in the peace we had earned. If you enjoyed this story, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for listening.